In the afternoon hours of April 27th, after a 911 call had been made, sobbing could be heard in the swamps of Lumber State Park, followed by a gunshot, and then silence. Hours later, a body was found in the water. How did we get here?
All right, so today we're talking about Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach. And both of us have done a lot of research into this topic. There's a lot going on.
There's
a lot of moving parts. And so we're going to try and go through each of these different details one by one.
And what's unusual about this one, well, I think it's unusual for me coming off of like the Chad Daybell case, is there's not a lot of people. It's a smaller kind of group of 3 or 4 people that are really involved in all of this, but it's just the craziness that is around these people that is so interesting.
Yeah, and it's a solid mystery. What happened to Mica on that, throughout those months, on that day and throughout all the months?
Yeah.
What happened to her?
And the conspiracy theories around it too.
Right. So interesting, which all of them could or could not be true.
Absolutely.
We're kind of in a, what's that cat guy? We're in the cat guy. The cat is alive or cat is not alive.
Schrodinger?
Yeah.
Schrodinger's cat?
Cat.
Schrodinger cat.
Could or could not be. We're in this liminal space. We don't know, because this is early.
And I'm also assuming too, and that the information that is being withheld for a reason, or they're not doing anything about it, the police. But I think we'll get back to police involvement afterwards.
Yeah.
As well.
All right. So Pastor John Paul Miller is the pastor of the Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And this is a beach community, and it's a fairly affluent community, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in Savannah, and Myrtle Beach was always one of those places that people talked about being a very nice place. So if you are from Savannah, you know the beaches there they're good. They're good. But they're not great. They're not great beaches in Savannah. But very close by is some really good beaches, and Myrtle Beach was always one of those that everybody was like, I'm going to Myrtle Beach, and everybody was like, oh, I'm jealous. And you're literally 5 minutes away from the beach.
Have you been there?
No, I've never actually been. I've been to Hilton Head. I've been kind of around it, but
I've been to Myrtle Beach.
I don't ever remember going to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, I've been to Charleston a couple of times and to Hilton Head, but never been to Myrtle Beach. So.
And Myrtle Beach kind of looks like a mini Charleston.
Yeah, from the pictures we saw. And the Solid Rock Church is right in that. It's very close to the beach.
Right. So like 4 or 5 blocks maybe at the most, yeah.
And it's in a really nice location. Around it looks very promising.
Very clean, very nice,
clean, yeah. Really nice.
It does look like they're in an older church that they've kind of renovated.
Oh, yeah.
The church looks like it might have been in the 90s, maybe. Nothing good or bad, but it just looks like they came into a nice affluent area and then fixed up an older church and started to minister there.
Yeah. So according to their online information, they moved to that property in 2016 with J.P. Miller being the pastor. And according to him, life has been great.
So only 7 or sure it has. Only 7 or 8 years then that the church has been at that location. Okay.
Right.
Are we going to go ahead and just go with calling this a cult? I'm just curious.
So I think so. I think J.P. Miller is your classic narcissistic pastor of Solid Rock Ministries. His father was also a pastor. His name was Wayne Miller, and Wayne Miller got into some trouble. Also, J.P. Miller went into the ministry because I think it was a family type thing, and that really was all he knew. And he's charismatic. He's a charismatic leader. He's good at speaking.
We're talking about JP is charismatic, right? Do we know anything about Wayne, and was he Was he a charismatic speaker? What do we know what denomination he was or
I can't tell what denomination any of these people are.
right.
It doesn't say that they're Baptist. It doesn't say, it says they believe in the Trinity, but other than that, I don't. What branch of Christianity? I couldn't really tell based on their website, but I didn't sleuth that much.
Right.
So maybe if somebody knows what branch of Christianity they are, it seems kind of isolated, and it seemed like that's what he would do with his church members. He was isolating them and then threatening them when they would try and leave.
Right, absolutely.
So he was creating his own little cult essentially with this solid rock. Now, some people were able to leave, and there's stories out there of the ones that did leave. He would stalk and harass them
Right.
to come back.
Right. And I also heard too that with his with the members, your standing inside of the church was dependent on your kind of tithings, like how
Oh,
much money you
wow.
gave to the church was your
That's really abusive.
right.
So if
Yeah.
you gave more money or if you had more talents, you were promoted or exalted or in his favor.
Yeah, and a lot of the information that we have comes from, ex-members as well as some of the family members of Micah. So I wouldn't put 100% of my faith into anything that is heard, but learning about him and his MO and what people are saying that have left the church, it aligns for me really, really well that um, this would be how he would react to people leaving and your pathway into the thing. So like the whole idea that everybody that, it was like there was a whole entertainment thing with people playing piano and apparently he owned a bar as well.
Wow. This feels like a southern a southern gothic mystery story. It
Yeah.
has all the elements of
Yeah.
this pastor that has this seedy lifestyle and his wife and ex-wife and his girlfriend. I mean, there's all the elements there of just
And there was also
craziness.
like one of his lawyer is a member at the church.
Mm.
The police department gave him a badge that says
I'm a
pastor,
pastor.
says pastor on it, so that he could get out of parking tickets.
Oh, wow.
Right. So like he was embedded and it's again following this the timeline of the charismatic leaders, right? Is that you embed yourself with people of power that give you credibility.
Right.
So when you have people like the police that are giving you badges and you want to leave this church, well, you have to fight against the police, even if it's true or not. It's just perceived.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a badge. How are you going to leave a guy like this?
And then I had heard also that he, in the way that Nexium operated, he would use people's weaknesses against them and then bring it up from the pulpit what that person's
Specifically what they
said and their weakness.
Yep.
Like, oh, I have a drinking problem, and then he would go out, oh, Mary Sue has a drinking problem.
So I don't know if he said their name specifically. So the way that I interpreted this was that if you had come to me and said, I can't stop gambling, or let's just use gambling. I have a gambling addiction. Can you help me out? And I'm going to be like, well, let's pray, blah, blah, blah. And then the next sermon, he would be like, for all of our members out there that have gambling addictions,
Wow.
and it's like this, you driving the lesson home.
And everybody knew it's Mary Sue.
Well, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, now you're questioning who in the congregation does have a gambling addiction, and you're going to start looking around.
So he was creating that typical cult environment where everyone's trying to garner favor from him.
Yeah.
And get into these positions of being in the music place or in the front rows or whatever it was.
Yeah. And that was the thing too, is that if you were to join, so a lot of his drive was towards this religioustainment kind of
Oh,
aspect.
yeah.
So you would have the guy playing piano, and there would be like, I mean, some of the videos that we saw were like a full band up there, and they looked like professional players.
Uh-huh.
Not,
And Micah was a really good singer too.
yes. Well, that was part of, I feel, the indoctrination into the church. So you had all of these professional players, and there was one member that joined, and I think she joined because her husband, yeah, her husband was a friend with the pastor,
Hmm.
with JP. And so he was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're a good singer, but if you want to join, there are rules to be in the band. And you have to sit on the front row, and you are required to cheer the loudest and to say amen the most." So there were rules around how you were supposed to behave
Yeah.
to,
And if you didn't behave in his way, you were kicked out. So he would practice the garnering favor and then publicly shame people. And I think he would shun people from the congregation also.
I hadn't heard that one, but it
There was
wouldn't
the
surprise me.
story of where Micah was staying with an older woman and he shunned the older woman from the
That's right.
congregation.
He did. Yeah, that's right.
So everything is about control for
Mhm.
this man, this pastor. He had to control his congregation. He had to control the women in his life,
Mhm.
all of them, whether they had been married to
And the
him,
women in the congregation.
and the women in the congregation. He had no respect. It appeared that he had no respect for women at all
Yeah.
based on the sermons he was giving.
Yeah. So one of the sermons that we watched, basically he said that, I'm trying to remember how it was worded. It was, um, oh, that's right. Can everybody say amen, right? Like, or something like that. And everybody says amen. And he's like, all I heard were the women, but the women do like to talk, don't they?
The women talk too much.
Yep. And I'm like, wow.
Wow. Damn. Already he's criticizing the women in the.
But it was, and again, it's for me, I look at this and I see similarities, but it's subtle. It's that little phrase, it's that little quip. If you look at it as a standalone, it's just like, well, yeah, he's a bit of an ass. But if you look at it in the broader terms, how often was he saying stuff like that? How many times was he repeating these messages? Because that is what he used in his sermons, was repetition to drive a point home.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and he would also say like, do you know what this means? And then everybody would like, no, I don't think anybody here would know what that means.
Right.
Like,
So he's the smartest man.
right.
He's setting himself up as the smartest man in the room, the one that has all the answers, the one that controls them. And if
Right.
they don't do what he says, then they are shunned. And that's the environment of the Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach. And that's the environment that all of this happened. So he has created this mini cult of
Mhm.
people trying to please him at all times.
Right. And I think that's important, following through when we learn about the other characters
Mm-hmm.
in this situation, because the level of control, the level of narcissism, him being a charismatic leader, this all kind of flows into why would someone do A, B, C, D
Right,
going forward.
right.
So uh, let's talk about um, Micah.
Mica Miller. Well, Micah, I don't know her maiden name
Oh,
actually.
that's a good point.
I don't know. She was a member of this congregation, this Solid Rock Common. What is it? The Solid Rock.
At the Commons. I think that's the name of like that subdivision or the area. It's called the Commons.
Oh, okay.
That's what it feels like to me, but there's no real description of like that area.
Okay. So the Myrtle Beach Solid Rock Christian
Yes.
Church. She was a member of it. And I don't know if her whole family was a member, but she most definitely was a member. And she became a babysitter. Well, she got a job as an admin also, and then at the church. And then JP Miller said to her, "Why don't you come be a babysitter for my kids?" And JP Miller has, at the time, had 5 kids with his wife.
Right.
Mica Miller was married when she was 18 to another parishioner in the church. And the other parishioner, Mica Miller's ex-husband, I don't know his name, he said Mica never had any mental issues.
Right.
She was fine. Everything seemed fine for him. What he did say was that JP was starting to separate them in the way a typical cult leader does.
Right. Within the church organization, he was separating them.
Right.
That makes sense.
So he could get closer to her.
And bringing her in as the babysitter makes sure that she's around him even more often.
Right. Right. So they start an affair.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually the wife finds out about the affair. So she starts divorce process to JP. They get divorced. And then Mica Miller divorces her husband. And then the two of them get married. Now, all this time, he is still the pastor of the church.
Yeah.
He's never condemned for this behavior. And that's pretty shocking to me.
You think so? I feel that happens quite a bit.
Really?
And the congregation usually is like, oh, well, he's said his forgiveness, or he's said that, I was a weak man and all is forgiven in the eyes of God, so all is forgiven with us. I've heard that many times.
People stuck around, though, during this. And
no, that's what I mean. You got to remember, like was it the Fallows, the huge mega church where you had the husband and wife team, and he was like having affairs and
it's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, but
this is such a stereotypical tale.
Yeah, but like they had like, tens of thousands of people attend their church. Like it was one of those mega churches. And I think their population went down by like 1%.
Wow.
After all of that came out. And then he got all weepy and, God has forgiven me. And then they were right back into it again. And then he was found accused of stealing money from the church. So this doesn't surprise me for churches. You put people into power and then people,
they ignore what's around them.
And it's circular too. So you give them power and then you feel that, oh, he has power. So it's this.
It seems pretty shocking to me that you are the pastor. Everybody knows your wife and your 5 children.
Yeah.
You're a member of this church. And then all of a sudden you divorce this wife and marry the babysitter. And then the babysitter divorces her husband. It's very clear what's happened.
Yeah. And it's not just that. It's also the fact too that it wasn't just they divorced. It was first they had the affair. Then they divorced. Then she, it's not even like, well, these just people weren't meant for each other. And then, they found true love or whatever. And no, it was not that at all. So that a simple divorce and a simple marriage is like different, but
it's a very clear he's got this congregation in absolute control.
Wrapped around his fingers.
Yeah, absolute control.
Yeah.
So they get married and
that would be Mica and
JP
Miller, yeah.
Yeah. They don't have any children. And the 5 other children, they have shared custody with the ex-wife now.
Right.
And it seemed to be an amicable relationship eventually.
You're referring to the children and JP?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the stepmother, Mica.
Mica, okay.
Well, because she was the babysitter, so they knew her.
Right.
And they had a relationship with her already.
Yeah, and well, didn't we find out that Mica called, left a message on the ex-wife's answering machine about like the issues that she was running into later. So there was definitely a relationship there
Yeah.
of some sort. If you call someone for advice, it's not because you hate them.
Yeah. So at the same time that JP Miller had divorced his first wife with the 5 kids, married Mica, he was also having another affair with another woman. And
that was a married woman.
a married woman.
Yes.
So this man is a sex pest. Just off the chain sex pest. In the stereotypical way. Like, could
Yeah.
you be more of a walking stereotype?
I don't know. I think he breaks outside of some of the stereotypes with the other information that we found out
Do you?
about him.
I don't know. We'll see. Also involved in this whole story is JP Miller's lawyer.
Yes.
And
he's a member of the congregation.
he is. He's a member of the congregation. I would, in the context of cult and high control organizations and high control groups,
Yeah.
this lawyer seems to me to be like the first lieutenant in that cult.
I was thinking lieutenant in my head when you were talking about him.
The enforcer.
Mhm.
The one that he's been sending cease and desist letters to everybody.
So we're probably going to get one after this.
Oh, that would be so exciting.
That would be awesome.
That would be our first cease and desist.
I would pin it. I would frame it and pin it on the wall.
Like our first line. Since starting this, that would be so much fun.
We collect them as badges of honor.
Oh, yeah. How many cease and desist can you get? He's sending them out, and he is acting as that first lieutenant.
Yeah.
The way that cult leaders do, they've got someone that they entrust their most delicate things to, and that person carries out all instructions.
So he's hitting a lot of the triggers of the charismatic leader. So the other thing that a charismatic leader would do too is expunge data. So it's control the narrative is kind of
the narrative,
the overview, but part of controlling the narrative is it's not so much the information that you give out, it's also the information that you withhold. Anything that might make the leader look bad would be removed. We're talking about Stalin stuff here. And so in our research, we did a Google search for JP Miller, and only one picture of him came up.
The website for Solid Rock has completely removed his
sermons.
Not all of his sermons.
No, the sermons that matter.
The sermons that matter. And they've removed any pictures that if you go to their photo galleries, all of that's completely gone. And they have not removed him as preacher of the church. He's still the main pastor.
Right. So that is a very important point in this. It isn't that they are removing him, they're removing his imagery. And any video or pictures that could be used against him.
Yep.
Because all the pictures could be entered into evidence. But, this is the internet and we have copies. So those pictures and everything else will be found and brought up. And we already know that some of the stuff has come out later through whistleblowers.
Yep. All right. So if we go through the timeline, this girlfriend that he had so he was married to Mica and he had another affair. He's probably had multiple affairs.
We're just going to
allegedly, let's just assume that.
Right. But that's the assumption, but we can stick to just what we know, which is 2 right now. And one of these affairs has also some suspicions around it as well.
Right. So in 2021, his girlfriend's husband died in a pool. And the husband was in a wheelchair. Yeah. And he drowned in the pool unattended. Very suspicious circumstances. And then following his death, JP Miller did the funeral for him.
Yeah. So let's look at that, because it's easy to go, well, he was associated with it. Now he's burying them. That could be one thing. But you were having an affair on with his wife and you're burying him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
This man has no conscience.
yeah. So let's not take it from the standpoint of so the suspicion of the husband of the woman that he's having the affair with is suspicious just on its own. But let's not have that as being like this is concrete evidence or this is any evidence of any sort. But let's talk about what the evidence we do have, which is he was having an affair with his wife, and then he did the burial of this guy. And that is just
Suspicious and weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
But that goes back to his MO, which is the things that you would look at and go, this seems wrong. He doesn't have that part of his brain turned on.
He doesn't.
So we're already assuming that he's a narcissist, but is he also maybe a sociopath?
Maybe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, his behavior is absolutely, and it's narcissism and the church kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It was
well, they're feedback
easy.
loops.
Yeah.
And that's what I was getting at with the congregation giving him power. And then he gives the congregation it's this, one thing doesn't happen in a void. It's this loop. You can't just go into a church and say, we're going to make this into a high control group.
It
has to be this feedback loop over time. Yeah.
Yep. And the peer pressure and having that first lieutenant enforcer, it takes all those things. And it takes a charismatic person to convince you to do whatever it is they're asking you to do.
So it's like his Michael Cohen, basically. The Michael Cohen was the enforcer, during the for Trump.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't really know politics. So.
Oh, this one's fun though. The Michael Cohen stuff is fun. So it was his bulldog, and that's what he got paid to do, which was to basically shut people up.
Yep.
And that's not conjecture. I will say that is exactly what both parties have said about Michael Cohen.
That was his job.
Yeah, that was his job, and that's good to have on your team is someone that can do that sort of stuff. But this is a preacher,
and he's got the lawyer there doing that for him.
Exactly, and he has a badge.
Yeah, from the police.
So he's official.
So in November of 23, Mica's sister called 911 that she had been getting threatening texts from JP Miller.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think they had already been separated, the two of them, and JP Miller was sending texts, I think, to her whole family because he was losing control.
Yeah. Well, wasn't he also, was this about the same time that Mica was staying with the older woman from the church?
I think so. I think
and
that was the
kicked
same
her
time.
out of the church.
Yep.
For helping Mica.
Yep. And during this time, he sent her one of the texts where he threatened self-harm on himself, and he told Mica's family, blood is going to be on your hands. And she went to the police, and nothing happened to him at that point with these threatening text messages.
Again, we go back to there are no laws about manipulating, people that manipulate others and control others through thought and action.
We don't have any high control group laws on the books. I don't have a time in here, but during this time, before February 10th, JP Miller, through this lawyer, had Mica put in the hospital. Right. Old-timey, hysterical, like old-timey, my wife has hysteria type craziness. Yeah. I didn't even think that was still possible nowadays, but apparently with a good lawyer, that'll do whatever you say, no questions asked.
Which is apparent.
A pastor, you can get someone committed.
And that puts more of kind of a vision into who this lawyer is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just envisioning, a rough and gruff Southern lawyer who drinks too much.
No, I don't think that's him,
Oh,
but
but come on, I want that in my head.
yeah, maybe. He's just a Southern lawyer. Well, they get her committed, and then on February 10th, she's released. She's discharged.
So how long was she in the?
I don't think very long. I think maybe like a couple of days. It wasn't a long time, but enough for it to completely disrupt your life. If you go missing for a couple of days in the hospital,
Yeah.
a lot of things could happen.
And more importantly, is it puts it on record that she was in a mental institution,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
whether it was voluntary, real, or not.
Right. Yep. So on February 10th, she is discharged from the hospital, and she reports that JP has taken her cars and her purse, and I think her phone also. And he has that stuff. The police come, but the police say it's not stealing because you're still technically married, and that's still shared property.
Wait a minute. What?
Mm-hmm. So again, nothing happens to him.
So, wow. So I could take your car that is, let's say you bought it with your money. I could take it, steal it, and you have no recourse.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because we're married and it's shared property, at least in South Carolina, in Myrtle Beach, and the pastor has a badge.
Yeah. Oh, there's that too.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
And a lawyer.
And a lawyer. So finally, Mica reports to the police that she believes that JP has put her in the hospital fraudulently, like that was not appropriate, and that he stole her car. But again, there's nothing they can do because it's shared property, and that's who they are. So wild.
Wow.
Wild. Okay, so I have to keep this document because there's so much stuff here. Okay, so on March 11th, her tires are slashed, and she calls the police to report that her tires were slashed by a male, and she thinks it was done by JP.
Right.
So she files a police report and says that he's the one that did it, that when they found the...
Well, from what I remember, what I heard was that it was the police that helped her take the car over to the tire shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tire shop found a GPS tracker
Right.
in the car.
Right.
Which is, so this is all in police evidence. This is not hearsay. This is...
And again, nothing happens. Nothing happens to the pastor after the tires have been slashed. According to reports, a couple of times the tires have been slashed, and there's trackers on her car. Wow. She also states in the police report...
Well, women talk too much, so, that's...
Yeah.
That tracks.
So she says that she met JP when she was 10 years old and that he groomed her. And she uses the word groomed. And this is in the police report where she says that. All indications feels that is right. My opinion, based on the way the stories unfold,
He just waited 8 years for she was old enough.
Yep. And was grooming her from the very beginning. This is a piece of work.
I would change the word work for something else, but we'll keep it clean here.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So on March 14th, another complaint was filed with the police, and they said...
By Mica?
No, someone from the church.
Oh.
Saying that... What is this police report?
Is this the one where he was showing up at someone's...
No, this is where that she was stealing money from the church. So,
Mica was stealing money from the church.
mm-hmm. That was what someone from the church said, but who it was and what their motivation was to say that Mica was stealing.
Yeah.
The
Was it money missing? And then they talked to the preacher and, oh, well, only 2 people have access to that. And it's me and Mica.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me. So
you believe me, right?
yeah, the police say there was really no probable cause. And so again, the police don't do anything about this alleged money being stolen from the church.
Right.
So around April 15th, Mica files for separation. Then April 23rd is the separation request, and the court date is set for June 5th. They're already living separately at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then on April 25th, Mica serves JP with divorce papers.
Right. When was that? April when?
April 25th.
Okay.
She serves with divorce papers. So she was trying to get away.
Yeah.
She was trying to leave
Because a
him.
lot of people like ask, well, why wasn't the person
Why
trying
didn't
to
they
leave?
just leave?
Or just leave. Yeah, well, she was.
She was trying to leave. On April 27th, in the morning, she goes and she buys a gun.
Mm-hmm.
She tells the people.
But she also told other people too that I'm buying this gun for protection.
For protection. Yeah, for self-defense, because she was afraid of JP Miller.
Yeah.
And then later on that day, they find her body with what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound
Mm-hmm.
in the woods at this Lumber River State Park.
But there's circumstances around the witnesses, how they found the body, where they found the gun, where they found the shell casings. Like, nothing makes sense. And this is where it gets kind of
Mucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the gun was found 40 meters away, 120 feet away from the body. And this is, we looked up pictures of the park, and it does have a river that flows through the park. But it isn't like a torrent kind of river. It's more of like a body of water that's moving slowly.
It's a lazy coastal river.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also very swampy there. So imagine just silky smooth water around reeds and cedars and everything else. So if there was a gun that dropped into the water, it would be right next to her. There is no reason for the gun to be more than a couple of feet away if it was self-inflicted.
Maybe. I think maybe if she fell into the water and she could have floated
a
little way. She might have floated away.
Yeah, that's true.
From the firearm, but it is very mysterious. The whole thing is very mysterious.
Well, weren't also like the shell casings? I heard that there was multiple, maybe.
I don't know.
There should only been one, but that wasn't even close to, and that could have fallen into the water and moved away too. So
yeah,
none of that is.
Another part of the mystery too is something I did miss was earlier, before the body was found, she called 911 and said, "I'm about to do self-harm."
Yes.
So.
And I want everybody to be able to find my body afterwards.
Right. Which is suspicious also. Now it gets into crazy.
Because it hasn't been crazy so far. But now we get into the crazy.
The very next day, this pastor goes on stage and gives a full sermon, soup to nuts. And we've seen parts of it. We haven't been able to see the whole thing.
We've been looking for the whole video.
We've been trying to find the whole thing.
If anybody has the original video, please let us know.
Let us know. We want to see it.
Yeah.
But the bits and parts we've seen is he gives a traditional sermon about King David.
and Jacob. Jacob and another name that
I don't
was
remember Jacob.
uh,
I thought it was about Saul and Nathan and King David and
there was
that whole
another
thing.
name that I thought started with a J. It's irrelevant, but it's uh but one of the things that did occur was, from what I remember seeing, was that he skipped forward in the sermon and paid specific attention to this one versus the others. And it has to do with generational.
Blessing or generational curses,
Yes.
which was very odd considering the family that he comes from and how corrupt that is allegedly.
And if I recall, he's accused his father of abusing him
Hmm.
as well. And the one thing you didn't touch about is, why was Wayne Miller arrested?
And I don't really know. And I know he was arrested and it had something to do with the school that he had opened up.
And you said something sexual. That's what.
Yeah, I'm not really 100% sure. I don't really know.
Do not take that as being any basis of fact. There's, and the weird thing about this is there's so much non-information out there about people, and it's almost as though these details were cleaned up. I wouldn't say oh, it's a deep state, process that they were expunging from national databases. I don't think it's any of that. I just think it's this kind of information that just doesn't get talked about.
Yeah.
Publicly, privately. It was all swept under the rug. It happened, he was arrested, whatever occurred, but all that information isn't really spoke about or public knowledge.
I think it will be now. I think now pretty much all of their family secrets are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So he's on stage giving a sermon about generational curses, and then he tells the congregation the full details of what happened to his wife. And from the stage, he talks about her mental illness and that she was mentally ill, and he just disparages her from on the stage in a way that is so horrific and disgusting.
Which again, it feels like Tammy Daybell all over again, which is someone has died mysteriously. So the first thing I'm going to do is tear her apart.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I don't think people behave that way normally. If someone dies, the first thing you even if they were horrible, you always go, well, they had their way about them. They were, they were steadfast in their opinions, which means they were a raging asshole, But when people that have lost a loved one to this mysterious ways, and then all of a sudden start going, well, remember how she wasn't right? Remember this? Again, it almost feels like he's trying to imply to them that this is the fact. So if the police or anybody comes talking to you, this is the key points that we should be bringing up.
Yep.
More than my wife passed and I'm having a rough time.
So first of all, he should never have been on that stage. If you find out the day before your current wife, because they were not divorced, they were just separated, but not legally separated.
And only a couple months or something like that too. It wasn't a long time.
Yeah. You don't go up on stage at that point ever. So the congregation has wiped all of those sermons off. They've done a good job cleanup, and then again, that lawyer's going around with a cease and desist crap.
Yeah,
the way he is trying to protect him, because what he did was absolutely inappropriate, uncalled for, and it shone a spotlight directly on him, because it's like, wait a minute, why would someone like this get up on stage and disparage her?
Yeah.
If he was innocent, why would he do that? And it was the eye of Sauron. Everything went to him.
The other thing too is, let's look at what should be occurring even if he's not guilty. So let's just say he is not guilty of conspiracy to commit let's say he's not even guilty of pushing her over the edge. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say he was actually trying to help her and it just came because he has no faculty to appear human,
Mm-hmm.
that it came across as this narcissistic crap that it was. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I don't believe anything I'm saying, but let's say all this occurred, is it's still, why is he the priest, the preacher at this church? Why do you have a sociopath narcissist as your preacher
Yeah.
whose wife died, is having all these affairs, and has some connection to them? And that, like, that's the part that doesn't add up for me.
Yeah.
Is it isn't so much whether he did it or not, it's that everybody's protecting him whether they know or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep protecting these people that are in power that ruin people's lives.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Because we know he goes to people's places of employment and he harasses people. He kicks people out of the church if they disagree with him. So everything that he's done is not what I would consider to be a man of God. And if you are a preacher, you should be a man of God.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, why aren't they firing him?
I don't know. I don't understand church politics.
Well, this is different, I think, too. I think this is related to the charismatic
Mm-hmm.
indoctrination.
Yep.
I think they are defending him, even though they know in the back of their minds that there's something wrong. But we have to protect them because it is now a us versus them
Yep.
sort
Yep.
of mentality.
Yep. And that is true because how I found out about this story was on June 2nd, something popped up on my ex Twitter feed, and it was of a protest that was happening in Myrtle Beach. And now protesters are showing up at the church demanding justice for Mica.
For Mica or for Mica?
For Mica. They're demanding, I know we were like, what are they saying?
I'm sorry. It's the chanting. It is not. I'm not laughing at Mica. I feel actually really sorry for her.
Yeah.
And everything that she went through, because it seemed like because how old was she?
She was 30.
She was, wow. So they've been together for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I imagine it was a living hell for her.
For 12 years.
Yep. The ex-wife on June 2nd, when the protesters showed up, she also went to the court to grant temporary sole custody of the two minor children because of all of this drama and everything that's happened. And she brought to light a bunch of other psychological issues that JP Miller. So it appears that JP Miller is the one with the mental psychological issues, and it wasn't Mica. It was all him.
Well, let's explore JP Miller and some of his possible psychological issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the one that I heard is that I would guess you would say he has a chemical imbalance and is on medication for said chemical imbalance. So he would have had access to lithium possibly through his problem, or it's not a problem. I don't want to discredit anybody that is going through something like this. It's not your control. It's not. But if you have those issues, that you know how your life can go one way or the other based on if you are having a good day or a bad day. But I believe that he was giving lithium to Mica.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that so after I found that out, I looked up the effects of too much lithium in a person's body, and at extreme levels. And when you say extreme levels, it's a high dosage over a period of days or weeks. And one of them is dementia. And so then you look up what are the effects of someone with dementia, and the someone that has dementia also would have a high propensity for self-harm
Hmm.
as well. So again, there's this possible link, that medication over a long enough period of time at a high enough level might have, and with all of the psychological abuse and conditioning that she's gone through, could have given that perfect storm to for her to do what she did.
Yeah.
So going back to him, let's talk about 10 years ago, that video.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, some friend of his, I guess, took a video of him falling on the grass, screaming and crying like a toddler, having a temper tantrum. And I think
That's what it looked like. And you're not overemphasizing this. It did look like a 5-year-old having.
And my question was, why would the friend film that instead of help him? Well, I mean, if my friend is clearly in some kind of distress and having a meltdown on my lawn,
He's like at the camera. He's like, "Hey, bud,
I wouldn't put a camera
you
in their
okay?
face.
Hey, how's it going? You okay? JP, you okay?" And he's just like,
Do that.
and he's just like, the doors open, the truck's like parked off to the side, and you're just like, and it looks almost staged.
It's weird. It's weird. And it could have been his ex-wife that took the video, and he was having a meltdown over being found out
It sounds like
about
a
his
guy.
affair.
It sounds like a guy.
Oh, it was a man taking the video. Well, then you got me. It just doesn't make any sense.
None of it makes any, like, his behavior doesn't make any sense. I mean, yeah, I would agree that I think what happened was he just left the house and was told, "I'm taking the kids from you. Get out of the house. You're not allowed here anymore."
And that's a reasonable, his response to it is a little unhinged,
Sorry. Yeah,
but
you know
if
what? I'm
you're
going to
in
laugh at him.
yeah, if you're in that situation, you are going to have breaks. You're
Yeah.
going to have mental breaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for your friend to come and film it, what kind of, that's a frenemy? Like what?
Put the phone down and pick the guy up.
Yeah,
Like,
help him.
or he's just like, "Hey, this guy is like out there screaming all the time and having these temper tantrums. The next time he does it, I'm grabbing my camera this time."
And because it wasn't the first time.
Might not have been the first.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought too.
Because
So-
after like 3 or 4 times of your next door neighbor doing that, after a while, you just got to get the camera out. The first 2 times you're like, "What the heck? Is he okay? Does he need help?" After after a while, you're like, "There
I'm
he goes
done with
again.
this,
There's
yeah.
old JP rolling around in the grass."
Yeah. All right. So I think we're going off script and this is completely hypothetical, just talking about the
Oh, yes.
circumstances. We have no idea because this is such an interesting mystery. Now, I'm going to tell you my thoughts. Part of the mystery, too, is where her body was found.
Mhm.
The lawyer's property is not far away from that. So it's of all the places you're going to do something like that to yourself, it seems like an odd place.
Ooh, I have a theory about that too. I'm gonna let you finish, and then I'm gonna tell you my theory about it.
Yeah, why do it there? Was there some significance to that location other than it's by the lawyer's property? I would think you're so close to the beach. Maybe she wanted to go to an isolated. The area looks beautiful, but
Yeah.
it's a
2
very
hours away.
swampy.
It's also a couple hours away from Myrtle Beach. It's
Oh,
not.
is it?
Yeah, it's not like a 10-minute drive.
And that is like swampland. I
Mhm.
mean, that is like Carolina swamp where all the weird stuff grows.
So either. Well, look, you know what? I'm gonna let you finish. I'm sorry. Because you want to talk about what your theory is on what occurred.
Oh, I don't know. So go ahead and.
So I've got a few theories. So one is, let's look at the stuff that we do know, which is that there is a bulldog lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Was she confronted by the lawyer? Because one of the theories that I have is that she filed for divorce. Remember, it was on April 25th is when she not filed for divorce, but gave him the divorce papers.
And the court date was set.
So that was 2 days before
Mm-hmm.
she was found dead, found
Mm.
deceased. So we know that he is a narcissistic control freak,
Mm-hmm.
and that if anybody leaves the church, he goes after them and basically treats them like garbage.
And she was raised in that high control group from an early age. And then not only was she in that high control group, he groomed her, according to her own words,
Yeah,
early on. So she was on high control on top of high control.
absolutely. Well, I doubt that JP would have been the one to talk to her. The lawyer would have.
Mm.
That makes sense. Like, I'm thinking about it logically now, and that would make sense. Well, I'm going to have, if you're going to divorce me, I'm going to have my lawyer talk to you. Did the lawyer threaten her?
Hmm.
And one of the things that we brought up was that he gets information on the people of the congregation. So to kind of use it against them in the future. So what information, because he's known her since 10,
Mm-hmm.
would he know about her? He would probably know all of her secrets. And my guess, and put a big question mark on the screen right now, huge guess, is that the conversation was, you can't divorce me because I know all of your secrets. If you leave me, your life is ruined.
Well, and he did that to her before.
Yeah.
So he
Really?
he posted naked pictures of her on Facebook, and which is called revenge.
Yeah.
And that's illegal
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Yep.
He apologized to her, said he took it down right away, but he already did that. So what other information did he have to threaten her with exposing?
Agreed. If he had that, he has a bunch of other.
He's got other stuff, and he's already done what he said he was going to do. So she already knows he has the mental capability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that do to her life if her family found out whatever piece of information? And I bet her family at this point would have been like, we don't give a shit about all any sexual stuff
But
that happened. We'd rather have you alive.
Yeah, but after you lived your life in that church for so long with, being told all the time the correct way to behave,
Mm-hmm.
that goes against your teachings.
Yeah.
Because she called the ex-wife and was like, I'm just trying to get right
Mm-hmm.
with, I think God is what she had said, or something to that effect. So that means that there was something going on with maybe some information and that she was ashamed of. Who knows? Again, all speculation, no factual evidence in any of that.
It's just such a mystery.
It is.
At this point, because did she do this to herself? Her family is saying that there were bruises on her body. Another piece of information too is that he had her body cremated almost immediately after it was released to him. So there wasn't a full investigation done. Again, he has a police badge, pastor.
Yep. I heard someone mention that there should be a new law called Megan's Law.
Megan's Law.
Yeah. Sorry, Micah's Law. Micah's Law. And that any death, if there is a restraining order or any physical abuse noted, and then someone dies, that the husband or boyfriend cannot do anything with the body.
Mm-hmm.
That it can be buried, but buried by like they can have a funeral and bury it, but they cannot cremate or dispose of the remains until an investigation is complete.
I think that's a good law, but this is South Carolina. This is South Carolina police. This is where we had the Murdaghs that owned everything in the southern coastal region.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, you cannot expect you've got these dynasties of power, and
the Garden of Good and Evil was the same thing. It was about rich. I believe they were lawyers that lived in a elite coastal southern city, and it's the same thing. It's ultimate power. And
The
I grew up in that area, and I
mhm.
know about it.
I mean, the idea that justice, it takes everyone talking about this story
Hmm.
to really get justice done. And I think that's what happened in the Murdoch case also. It took everyone talking about the story to see progress happen, because
Yeah.
you cannot just bring down these dynasties and these people
Not
in
in
these
one thing.
regions.
Yeah, agreed.
It just doesn't happen.
Hmm.
So I agree. I think that Micah's law would be a really good law to enforce. And I would support that. I think I I think he drove her.
Hmm.
I think you're right. He had information on her, and she just caved. Like, it was just not worth it anymore.
Yeah,
I think
because I
that
can't be free of you. I'm just trying to leave.
just
Let me
trying to leave
leave.
my
Because
life.
you're with someone else whose husband died mysteriously.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get out of here. Please let me go. And he's like,
And
no,
he wouldn't, because he's
he has to
high
control
control.
everybody.
He has to control everything. He's got to control the narrative. He's got to control the people, has to control the congregation. Everything has to be done his way.
No.
And it was just too much for her. I think the location of the lawyer's property and where the body was found, I think it's circumstantial,
I don't.
coincidental.
I think she went there to go like one last fu to the lawyer.
Hmm. Oh, that would be kind of cool.
That's what I'm.
She like gone girled it.
Well, that's where I'm think. That's kind of what I'm thinking is if she did this, that place was specific. That
Yeah,
there's
why that
probably a bigger
place?
meaning for JP for that place, or it was an fu to the lawyer because his land was right there, but she couldn't get to it because it's probably like a private entrance or something. Guesses, just guessing,
Hmm.
but that was the closest she could get, and then she was like, "Screw you."
Wow. I think JP is responsible for her
Hmm.
death. Whether he directly caused it,
Yeah.
pulled the trigger, I don't think so. I think he was away. But so we did see pictures of his truck driving in Charleston, I
Yeah.
think it was. But it was just his license plate.
Well, it was.
Anyone could have been driving
Well,
that truck.
it was his truck, but his windows are so darkly tinted that
You
anybody could have
can't
been
see,
driving
and
it.
it could have been anybody.
And the only person that is giving him an alibi is the current girlfriend.
Is the girlfriend.
And that's a shocker for a high control group.
That he was cheating on with Micah. So the whole story is just seedy and southern and high control culty and just weirdness.
Yeah. The police interview with him too was also fascinating.
Oh, I didn't know the police did an interview with him.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because they went and told him that we found your wife, and then they had the picture. So
I thought that was a news organization that did that interview.
No, that was the police interview. I believe. I believe it could have been, but there was a picture of Micah, and it was like propped up on a book and then angled in a certain way. It was not what I would consider to be a normal place for a picture to be. So he definitely put that picture there so that it could be seen. Maybe if it was news, the news said, "Hey, can we put this here too?" Don't know. But it was all just seemed really staged. And then he starts talking, and it's just kind of like, just get a bad vibe from this guy.
Oh, totally.
Not even knowing anything about what could have, because I don't know about all the past stuff. Just that his wife committed self-harm. That's all I knew. And I'm watching him just like, this guy's skeevy.
Mm-hmm. He is.
And then you learn more about him.
You're like, ugh. Gross.
But we also need to talk about what he's doing lately.
What's he doing lately?
Well, apparently he's driving around the neighborhood in his DeLorean wearing a Spider-Man outfit.
Okay, who has a DeLorean?
Well, who has a Spider-Man outfit?
Oh my goodness. Driving around in a fancy, does he live in a fancy neighborhood?
It was okay.
Okay.
It wasn't great, but it was okay. I mean,
in a Spider-Man costume. That is unhinged. And what
after recently too, not before.
Wow.
So he's just like, I know what I'm gonna do.
I can't imagine being a parishioner in this congregation and seeing your pastor go off the rails like this and
Man
go,
of God there.
yeah, that's okay.
Well, he didn't pick out Superman, so it's saying something.
That's okay. What? And going to church and having all these protesters outside of your building demanding justice and still being so conditioned to move forward.
Well, there is some good news, and that is that the FBI are now involved.
Oh, yeah.
So, if the
It's not the local Myrtle Police Department.
Myrtles,
The Myrtle. They're doing their best to support the pastor.
the Myrtles. So them there Myrtles now have to talk to the FBI,
Well, that's
and
good.
I don't want no FBI messing up my investigation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it took SLED to get involved with the Murdoch case before actually.
What was SLED? You told me, I believe, but
It's the South Carolina legal something.
I gotcha.
There.
So, investigative, it's over the investigative body of the.
Yeah, it's like the state investigation team.
Right.
To actually get to the bottom of what happened.
So, how's your investigation going? Well, we had coffee.
And we just let him go.
And Mr. Murdoch said he didn't do it. And
So
by God, if he says it, I believe it.
Yep. That's just how we operate down
He's
here
got a badge.
in South Carolina in the coastal region.
I think Murdoch had one too.
Probably.
If I'm not mistaken.
Probably. I mean, it's
It's like
this whole area, like
giving keys to the city to pedophiles, like
yeah, just okay. Just go do whatever you need to do. We'll be over here reading the news.
Wow. And if anybody doesn't think that could, that could get worse, is Jim Jones was made in charge of the local government for housing authority.
Mm-hmm.
So he was put into a position of political power, and it wasn't elected. So it was
it was appointed.
Yeah. So maybe we should stop giving badges to these people and stop treating them like they're above the law. That would be great.
Yeah.
To get behind that.
Yep.
And his DeLorean.
Well, I think in his DeLorean, this guy, this charismatic leader, pastor, narcissist.
And I will have to say that his sermons, he is charismatic.
He definitely is. He
is a good speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's a good singer and a good piano player.
Yeah, apparently. Only at his bar. I don't think we talked about the bar.
No, I don't know anything about the bar. And that's really seedy also.
Well,
this feels like a movie.
And it just keeps going, right? So apparently he owns a bar, and apparently one of the rules, if you were to be a performer at the church, was that you had to play at his bar.
Oh my goodness.
So the woman, I believe, I want to say her name was Anna, but I can't remember, but she was an ex congregation member, and she was talking about her husband was friends with the lawyer or friends with JP. I can't remember. And so he had to be at this church. That makes sense. These people really need to go. But he was a really good piano player. So when JP found about it, he was like, yeah, you need to come and be a part of our church because I need a piano player at my bar, apparently. So he was having him play in church and then also at the bar as well.
Wow.
So she was a good singer, the Anna, and she was like, well, I want to join my husband. And then it was like, well, there's a bunch of rules. And you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do this. And if you don't do that, you can't sing anymore. And I think that was one of her first moments where she was like, who are these people?
Mm-hmm.
And why would you want to come to this church just to be be ordered around you're, some sort of general or something like that. So it's all fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's come to a conclusion of this case. And I think right now we're looking at 3 different theories. And these are theories, like no real information. We are just gathering what a lot of other people are saying, and a lot of people are saying a lot of different stuff. And
This is our theories.
these are our theories,
theories.
based on other people talking. So nothing's been really found out in this case.
And I think it's important for everyone to take this story and to disseminate this message as much as possible.
Yeah.
The word needs to get out about this JP Miller person. He is not a safe person. He is not a safe leader.
He should not be in a position of a church, in my opinion. My opinion is that he should not be in a leadership role.
He has shown all the markers of a cult leader
and charismatic
and a charismatic cult leader, and that's extremely dangerous. And when a person like that is backed into a corner, we have seen through history what those type of people do to themselves and to others around them. We don't want any repeat of history, and he should not be any leadership position.
Agreed. I totally agree with you. All right, so let's break down these theories. So let's go with theory 1. Theory 1, Mica committed self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of the evidence is pointing towards this. Now, I believe what would have driven her to this is years of coercive control, years of shunning, years of
grooming,
emotional abuse. Who knows what was said to her shortly after April 25th, 26th, and even up to the April 27th, that could have driven her further into what she did.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first theory. And where she wound up, where the gun, that was all just, chaos theory, that things just don't always act the way that you think that they're going to happen. So that's the first theory. To be honest, I don't wish any of these 3 theories was true, and that she was still alive and that he was in prison. That would be my first one.
Yep.
But I hope that it didn't come to that, because to get to that point in your life
she was such a beautiful soul too. She really was.
She seemed like that, yeah.
No matter what JP Miller put her through and all of the shame and degradation that he put her through, she still was a beautiful person.
She absolutely was.
It is such a horrible tragedy that someone would have been pushed that far emotionally. Yeah,
agreed. Okay, so let's now look at theory number 2. And theory number 2 is that JP Miller did it. That the current girlfriend is giving him a fake alibi, and that she drove the truck to Charleston, and that he...
Oh, because she owes him for her husband.
Possibly.
Wow.
It's a possibility. And again, no information.
Yeah, we have no idea.
These are just 3 that could fit. And that he pulled the trigger next to the lawyer's office because he knows that land, and he was able to, he could have looked ahead of time.
He thought nobody would find her there.
Out there as well. Yeah.
And then,
Okay. So then we have theory number 3. Theory number 3 is one of my favorites, actually. It was the lawyer that did it. And that the lawyer is so indoctrinated. I'm kind of laughing because this is just the wild one. But the lawyer's so indoctrinated that he would do anything for the preacher, including taking care of loose ends.
Right. So one of the theories in this saga that I had never heard before is that the 911 call was actually AI generated. Mm-hmm. And the lawyer
is an AI
expert, apparently, which I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means either, to be honest with you.
But he understands AI and is using AI in his practice, which I think most lawyers should, because it helps reduce workload and errors and things like that. I think all legal teams should use AI, but that's probably all it is. But if he is an AI expert, he would be able to use a tool to have an AI simulation of her voice calling 911.
Which,
Now, I have never heard of this before.
right. But she's
but-
also like a singer and also talks all the time
So her
during the
voice
sermons
is recorded.
in HD, good quality. So they would have had thousands of hours of her voice recorded in the highest quality that you could get.
It is not
Unreasonable.
It's not unreasonable. It's not implausible. It could happen, which blows your mind when you stop to think of the implications.
Yeah.
If this starts happening in the future, how would we know someone was real or not the real person on the other end of a 911 call?
Right. So one of the thoughts, and I wanted to add this to this because this is the reason that I think that this should exist, is that people have talked about laws that would require any AI content to have a digital fingerprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that if you played it on your computer, there would be like a little tag that would say AI generated content.
Oh,
or
this
on your
is
phone,
where
it would say AI generated content immediately.
The blockchain would come in.
Yes.
Yeah, this.
So we have the technology to do it. Now, that doesn't mean someone could hack into and do that, but that is harder and it requires a lot more information.
I think it's important for families to have a secret code, and we have a secret code in our family. And we reiterate it. It's a little bit difficult with our older son who's autistic. He doesn't really remember the secret code, but our daughter knows the secret code inside and out. Yeah. And the secret code is, if anyone calls you, asks you for something, if anyone comes to the school, tells you to go with them, if someone comes to the door, what's the secret code?
And if they don't repeat it, or if their answer doesn't match what the family knows, then
they're not right.
Then they're not right.
And they're not right, and don't trust them. And also, if they need to be picked up from a party, no questions asked, they say the secret code. And the secret code is so innocuous that if someone didn't answer the way the family would answer, someone could easily fake it and give an answer.
Yeah.
And you would immediately know from our family that it's wrong.
That is not true.
That it's not true. Yeah. So I would encourage everyone to have a secret code also.
The Atreides battle code.
Yeah. I think we got it from Dune.
We did.
We totally got it from Dune, because we're like, that is an important aspect for, especially, and we were not even thinking of AI early on.
No.
We were thinking, if a kid needs to be picked up, no questions asked. We don't want you to get hurt. We will come get you.
Yep.
And that'll be it. Just say this phrase. And then it became, how do you distinguish AI? How do you protect yourself from someone who you don't know? And our daughter knows it inside and out, and she's used it actually one time. So for our son, a little bit harder, but I would suggest having something like that to protect yourself from AI in this situation, like a situation like this.
Might have, but when you call 911 for this, you don't, that would have been a little more difficult,
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't know.
Like the 911 operators
wouldn't know your secret code.
Battle code.
Yeah. Hey, what's your battle code?
Alpha Centauri. Vermilion.
Yeah. It's such a strange thought.
Yeah,
that
it is. And
that 911 call, and you can Google it and listen to it for yourself and see for yourself if you think it's AI generated.
And what's really sad about it is that if it is AI generated, and if it's pure AI generated, we had this discussion, there wouldn't be any intonations or inflections in tone. It would just be kind of not monotone, but absence of emotion. But if someone was going to commit self-harm, that might be how they would sound. So it's not a test that says, well, there's no emotion in the voice. But yeah, they're on their last leg. They're kind of done. That might be how they would sound in real life.
Yeah.
So you can play this different ways. Now, my opinion is that when the FBI comes, they're going to be like, they're going to run it through a machine, and the machine's going to say, or, yeah, there's no indication that this is AI generated.
I hope so. I hope the FBI really deep dives into all of the digital evidence there.
Yeah. But again, my theory is it's going to come back to be real, and that it's just coercive control. And I feel really
then it should be a wrongful death suit.
Yeah. Well, anyways, those are our 3 theories.
Get the word out. Tell everyone about this story.
Yep. What do you guys think? And what's your theory about this? Because it could go anywhere. And I think any one theory is just as valid as another. But I also feel, too, that we need to talk more as more evidence comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That the evidence needs to lead where we look to blame or not blame. Because you might not like J.P. Miller, but he hasn't been accused of anything at this point.
Yeah,
So
he's just a scumbag.
he's just a scumbag. But the people that are protesting,
Good
church,
on you. Good
on you.
Keep going.
Keep on you.
You got our support.
Yep. And it has nothing to do with bringing him down. It's bringing awareness and getting an investigation that is needed for Mica.
Yep.
Because Mica needs justice. And if the justice is that she did it, then there needs to be a bunch of civil lawsuits against him.
Yep.
And he needs to be sued into oblivion, in my opinion. So, anyways, thank you guys so much. Make sure that you like, and subscribe.
And think for yourself and don't be